All right, guys. I know I'm not going to sound very healthy. I'm not very healthy, but I just want to get you through the rest of these dense questioning notes. And this might take a little while because I still kind of want to go at a um, good pace for you to be able to keep notes and for you to be able to do some work on uh, actually working through this process. So I know, like on the screen right now, we talked about, that this whole setup is dense questioning, and in order to do it, you need to consider what the themes of the poem you're reading are. And then in level one, this is all about writing questions. And in level one, the first question that you'll be writing considers your experiences as, in connection with the themes. The second is considering the author's connection or the narrator of the poem's experiences with the themes. And then the last one is the other culture's experiences with themes. Remember that other cultures can be made more specific. So depending on the poem, like I think you saw before that I had a poem up called On Marriage by Pablo Neruda, or not Pablo Neruda, by Khalil Gibran. And so if you want to like break down other cultures into, say, people who are married, or people of the opposite gender, or people who live in poverty, and kind of like break down like a subsection of another culture, you can totally do that. You could also, like I said, break it down to like a different country. So what do people from India have experience with, blah blah blah, that sort of thing. So since we kind of stopped here, what I want to do is I want to show you how you can start writing these questions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my circles and I'm going to highlight them all and copy them. In your notes, if you want to, draw another set of circles so that you can oh, wait, no, we already did this. Good. Okay. So we did the questions already. That's awesome. I kind of forgot I did this with your class. So we're a little bit ahead of the game. So we decided that in The Road Not Taken, some of the major themes are making a difference, decision making, making choices. And so I just want to, again, review with you that the questions in the first level, and actually as you do this for all the levels, you want to make sure that you kind of include, like here on the I circled, and the decision, you want to make clear that you have that connection. So this is the myself category. Have I ever regretted a decision I made? Is it possible for, in other cultures, is it possible for a person's decision to make a difference? In this case, I would prefer it to be maybe a little more specific, like specifically mention the fact that we're talking about other cultures. So, is it possible? So, this could maybe be changed to like, is it possible for a person of another culture's decision to make a difference, uh, or to the world, or is it possible for um, a I mean, I guess just, mentioning that we're talking about other cultures right now. I don't want to get too ahead of myself because it's easy to do that with this stuff. And then with the narrator, is we specifically mention, is the narrator referring to a hard decision that they had to make? So this one is perfect. All right. So I did put the other day, or I will if I haven't already, I did put some additional notes up on Google Classroom. It kind of breaks this stuff down and explains it kind of step by step. So if you're having trouble kind of understanding what I'm getting at in this video, take a look at those notes, take a look at how they compare to what you're understanding, and then, see how you go from there. But now we're going to move on to these little section 2 portions, okay, where two circles overlap. because now this is where you have to try to blend the experiences between two things and then write a question about that overlap. So I'm going to move to the next page and I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Oh, come on. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here I have my circles. And we're really, like I said, we're going to focus on this overlap here. I'll use my purple because that was my section 2 color. And then this, okay, so if this was narrator, let me see if I can use my pen thing. Oops, not very well. All right, I'm just not even going to try that. It's not working out. So I'm going to have to try to write with a mouse, which isn't always the easiest thing, but we'll try it. Narrator. You know what? Why don't I just do it this way? Sick brain is not always smart brain, just so you kids know. Why don't I just write some text in here? Okay. So this will be narrator. We'll do another one over here. And this will be my experiences. We'll highlight that. Make that smaller because it doesn't need to be that giant. And then text box down here will be other cultures. So again, making that smaller. Okay. So rather than trying to, fit a bunch of text into these like little bitty spaces here, I'm just going to label this, space number 1, space number 2, space number 3, and then just kind of write them on the side just to kind of save some room. And you can do that too if you want, instead of trying to cram a bunch of stuff into those like little spaces. So my question from the previous slide for my experiences was, have I ever regretted a decision I made? All right. So now I want to write a question. Probably we'll start with other cultures. It kind of overlaps that one. All right. The question for other cultures was, have people from other cultures made decisions that have changed the world? Something like that. If that wasn't the exact wording, I'm sorry, but this question I have just written will work as well. Okay. Scale this down. I know this isn't probably the most interesting video you've ever watched, me typing things, but I'm doing the best I can. Cut me some slack. Okay, so I'm going to start actually with number 2 because I don't have the narrator over there. And it's probably easier for you to start, with questions about yourself. So, whoops, I did that wrong. In the number 2 slot, I have to think about, okay, so I have a question that considers whether I regret a decision. And I have a question that talks about whether people from other cultures have made decisions that have changed the world. All right. So now's the time to write a question that almost sort of compares yourself to the other cultures, and you can use elements from either or both of the questions that you have already written there. So something I might question about myself is, have the decisions that someone from another culture has made affected me personally. All right. So in one place we're talking about myself, in the second place we're talking about other cultures. But now I've created a question that blends sort of the two sections. Okay. And once again, I have specifically mentioned kind of what circles we're operating in here. So here we have, I'll do this green. Okay. So here we have someone from another culture. And and then I'm also talking about me. Okay. And then it all ties back to the theme of decisions. All right. So I have really all the elements there that I need to have. Okay. I mentioned the theme, I mentioned myself, I mentioned other cultures, and I have it blended to make that question. All right. So now I'm going to put the question in that we had for the narrator. I have to double check what that was because I'm referring to it. Okay. So, is the narrator... Actually, I'm going to say the author because it's the author. Author writing about an experience with decisions that he had to really make. So I changed it up a little bit just to kind of make it flow a little bit better. All right. And then once again, you take the concept of, your own experiences along with, the experiences of the narrator, and you build a question that connects the two. So something you might want to ask could be, if I were in the same position as the author, would making this decision have been as important to me? Okay, so once again, we're talking about the author. We're talking about myself because that's where the overlap is. Get some color green. And then we're also talking about the theme of decisions. Okay. So here's what I want you to do. And you'll probably have to pause this video and, take like 3 to 5 minutes and maybe do this. But I want you on your own, or maybe, consulting with the person next to you quietly, is I want you on your own to come up with a question for number 3. Question that sort of blends the experiences of someone from another culture and that of the author or the narrator. All right. Use the questions I've already written to kind of inform your questions. All right. And if you think you're not doing it entirely correctly at this moment, that's okay. Because it's kind of my policy when I'm sick to, revisit the things that we're doing kind of when I make a video, or revisit the things that we're doing in the next time I have you in class. All right. You can even try to raise your hand to get my substitute teacher involved. All right. And ask them if they think that it would be a question that adequately blends the experiences of both, the author and other cultures. Okay, so now hopefully you have paused that a bit and have written your own question for the author, narrator, other cultures. So now the last thing we have to consider is actually, I'm going to go back. Next thing we have to consider is this little bit in the middle, the one thing that I called the nugget question. Right? And here's all about the nugget question. It is a bit different from the other questions you have written because if you are blending the experiences of yourself and other cultures and, the author or the narrator, that kind of encompasses everybody, right? So the question that you formulate for the nugget will be a question that kind of anybody could answer. So if you found somebody from, Scotland, they could try to answer it. And if you found somebody from India, they could try to answer it. And if you found somebody who is rich or poor or a man or a woman or whatever their place in life, they might have an opinion of it. But there are a few things to consider about it. First of all, it is something that is called an essential question. Whoops. And really, all that means is, there's kind of the next things I'll talk about are kind of defining of an essential question. First of all, essential questions are questions that don't have one set answer. So the nugget question is not going to be a yes or no question. It's not going to be just a simple factual question that you'll provide one answer to. All right. And so far, none of the questions in our process have been like that. But the question itself is one that if you were to ask it to a group of people, it could spark some lively discussion or debate. Not saying that you should, actually go debating anything today, but it also, it does that because it allows for differing viewpoints. All right. So not everybody is going to have the same answer to this question. And, people who do have different perspectives on it will have different things to say about it. And also, the hallmark of a really good question is it is capable of creating more questions. All right. So, if the question is doing its job correctly, you might wind up with more questions than you even started with. All right. Because there could be so many different viewpoints on it that, you'd really have to go and, ask deeper things in order to really kind of get at the core of it. Oh, and I want to say that the last thing it is it really helps to dig at those deep humanity experiences. All right, so when we first talked about poetry, we talked about how, one of the functions of literature is to comment on these experiences, human nature and all that kind of stuff. And this question will kind of help to get at some of those things. So, we know that our theme is decision making. We know that we have to write a question that kind of looks at anyone's experience with decision making. So the nugget question will look something like, in my case, is it possible to make a decision totally without regret, or will there always be a little bit? All right. So, by asking this question, you could take a look at each person's experiences and use that to comment on the nugget. So, actually, I might want to change this a little bit. So, is it possible to make a big decision totally without regret? Because, I mean, if you're just choosing between, like, oh, should I have mac and cheese or should I have hot dogs for dinner, that might not come with a whole lot of regret. I mean, maybe it will. I don't know your life. Okay. But, is it possible to, I don't know, get married or move away from home or choose a college or whatever it may be totally without regret, like no looking back, no, I know exactly that this is exactly what I want to do, or will there always be a little bit of regret? And you yourself could answer that question for yourself. It's like, well, I don't know, even the biggest decisions, there's always a little bit of looking back. You could talk about the author or the narrator's experience as well. Maybe it's not possible for him because obviously he sounded like he had a little regret. And then for people with other from other cultures or other walks of life, you could really talk about, maybe something that happened in history to, or like to a celebrity or whatever, or talk about some of the decisions that people in other cultures have to make that maybe we aren't faced with. And you could have a lively discussion about it. Really, these are like discussion questions. All right. So, kind of the last thing I want you to do is I want you and, maybe a friend if you're going to collaborate, I want you to try to come up with a nugget question of your own. All right. And you can, because we did talk about, some of the themes are making a difference or having choices, you can choose to do your nugget question about those things. All right. But like I said, I don't want you to get too wigged out about this. All right. Just do these things in your notebook. And then when we do come back to class together, we'll talk about it. I'll ask you kind of what you came up with. And then the last thing I want to say is that there is an assignment on Google Classroom, and there's a poem there, and it's asking you to do the like triangle analysis chart. You don't have to do dense questioning to that poem yet. All right, we're going to do that together the next time we have class, but just do the analysis chart so that we can move into dense questioning when we're together. If you have any questions about anything, you can try to email me. I can't guarantee that I will be available all day since I am so like sick and my head is full of, nastiness, but I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Just do the best you can. And thank you for watching my like 23-minute video. All right, have a good day, kids. Thank you.